take a look at how we did with the picks in the association last week. So from the top, we had my team, the Great Danes. We both picked me to win that, and I did. 7-2. It was. I can tell you, it looks like it was a complete dominant performance by my team, but it really was not. I think we got a little bit lucky in some places, and anybody who won this week kind of got lucky with all the postponed games and you know just all the COVID stuff affecting fantasy leagues right now. I said last week that I thought this matchup was probably gonna be closer to like a 4-3 or 5-4 ending, and it had every opportunity to get there. But fortunately for myself, for my team, we had a few guys who showed up in the ways we needed them to show up, and did the things we needed to get the win. So that was a big one for me. Um, Anything you
I
noticed in the?
mean, I mean, you're not gonna say it, so I will. The Rucker Park Busters. I mean, they gotta have an all players meeting because their team is just not bringing it. Like, you're talking about 600 from the free throw line. I mean, I understand you're punting. I mean, because that's straight punting. Like, you're not even ignoring at that
That's
point.
according to
That that
plan.
that 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 is like punt.
That's
Like
according to
like that
plan.
is like
You got
that
Giannis
is like
shooting 1 for 10 from the free throw line.
that, that's like that's
That's
like don't
happening.
even practice. That's like don't even practice free throws. Don't worry, that's not part of the game. I don't even want us to have a chance at it. Like literally no chance.
Yeah.
Like that is just bloody awful. And then the field goal percentage. The field goal percentage was a little bit disappointing, given how this team built themselves. So I'm really interested to see how they correct some of the issues there. The 3-point shooting, that's expected. The points, maybe it could go their way, but I don't think so. I mean, you lost Embiid for a couple of games,
Yeah, I
um,
mean, I had no
so I don't
Kyrie,
really,
no Kyrie, no
yeah,
Tobias Harris.
yeah,
Embiid didn't play, and he played 2 games really well and didn't really show up as other two. But no Karis LeVert, no Garland. I mean, obviously no love, but yeah, we didn't have some of our scores out there, but still was able to put up a good performance.
yeah. I think Rucker Park, and we'll probably have a segment. Where we're talking a little bit more about his team in some future weeks. But
Mhm.
he might be given some of the top echelon teams. The Gotham Danes, the Brooklyn Phoenix. I expect maybe some calls might be coming in a couple of weeks,
Mm.
because there's just a lot of underperforming, that's going on here. But I know
Mm.
it's early, but that's
Yeah.
what I'm. That's
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Again, another week where rebounding did not show up the way that we would expect for this team. So, all right. Well, let's move on to Amherst, and the True Grit. What did you see there? We another one we expected uh, gone the way we expected.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's simply that Speedsters has got a huge quantity of players, but as far as the quality, they've just got a long way to go. I mean, I will point out, they unfortunately had Michael Porter Jr. In the lineup, and we can speculate as far as like, what caused him to be out, but he did turn out to come down, unfortunately, with COVID, and so he missed the week. So that was a bummer. But yeah, I mean, I'm just really sitting here and I'm concerned with the team. They lost Nurkic. That was a big loss. So they're starting Wiseman at center, and If you ask me, he's not ready for prime time. LaMarcus Aldridge, I think he had like a 0 rebound game the other day because I've got him in another league and I've just been frustrated. So I'm just looking at these players and it just looks like a pickup basketball team. Like, you're just picking up players, the best players that's around for that day. And, it's just, I don't think it ends well. They're probably looking. This is another team. In a couple of weeks, I'm gonna have some strong things to say. And then True Grit, man. I mean, True Grit does what True Grit, man. He comes to work every day, and you know what you're gonna get. Like he's probably one of the more consistent teams, and they just do whatever it takes, for typically a 5-4, right? But if you're in the danger zone, you can get 6-3, and I think that's what's really concerning here. When True Grit is giving you the 6-3, you got to start doing some reevaluations and figuring out what happened. And I will point out that both teams played 22 games, right? So although you had MPJ out, um, you still only had 22 games played by both owners.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, similar. I don't know that the talent is going to be there for Amherst to really produce at a high level. Again, they lost Nurkic, did not have Michael Porter Jr. Um, COVID kept the heat out, so no Tyler Hero. Um, Same thing with Bledsoe. Not a lot of games for Bledsoe. And then the Suns, Mikal Bridges was also not available for some parts of the week. You mentioned the Aldridge, dud that he put up. Um, really, really shorthanded coming into a matchup against a really strong team that has Anthony Davis and you know,
And I should mention coasting Anthony Davis because
yeah.
Anthony Davis been pissing me off because he's just happy to be there right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, he's not even with him not paying at his best, he's still a top 10 fantasy player overall right now. So, there's nothing or no one on the other side of this matchup that really can compete with that, and that's just the bottom line of it. Let's move on to Beantown and BBB de Madrid, who recently did some rebranding and is now going by uh, the Titans of San Juan. Um,
Yeah.
so we'll have to get Lewis on to tell us about the rebrand. But in any case, we split here in terms of our picks. You got it correct. What did you see that gave you confidence in BBB to take this win?
I mean, this really went back to the amount of games. I had San Juan playing significantly more games than Bombers.
Mm,
It turned out not to be true. But I think the Titans are being slept on, right? Like they've got some players which are starting to play a lot better, and Donovan Mitchell, and Buddy Hield. And then they've got some really strong defense, right? You're talking about PJ Washington, Boucher. Now he's getting the minutes out in Toronto, and Rudy Gobert. And Rudy Gobert hasn't even he's not even scratched the surface as far as like how well he should be playing. And
right.
so, I think they offer, a build that can be tough, now
Hmm.
that they're getting a little bit of momentum.
Hmm.
And I think it was just a bad matchup
Hmm.
um
Hmm.
for Beantown Bombers.
Yeah, I mean, caught me by surprise. I mean, with a team that has Kevin Durant and Zach Levine, and Kyle Lowry, I would think would be able to match up a little bit better. But I think, as you alluded to, the um, the defensive categories were not completely dominant.
Hmm.
Um, I do think that this team could have done a little bit better. I'm not sure. I think this was an upset, and I think you just got it right. Because I was expecting a little bit more, but when you look at Tyrese Halliburton, who is a strong contributor in the lineup for BBB, and you look at his past couple of games, he just completely underperformed. But he's a rookie. But you know,
Hmm.
his last game against New Orleans, only 2 points and 3 rebounds, 2 assists, had the 2 blocks, but that's still not what you were expecting, especially from the last week when he was in double figures every game. I mean, and hitting a lot of threes. So his last 2 games just did not. He just did not show up, and you're gonna get that from a rookie from time to time. But he's been a strong fantasy asset for the most part. But like you said, the Titans have Boucher and PJ Washington, and right now they kind of remind me of that Clippers team, that Doc Rivers Clipper team, who just had some guys that just were kind of over you know kind of overachieving in their roles, and so like you said, BBB could be one of those teams that can't be slept on right now, because you're right. Gobert, Mitchell, they can play a lot better than they're playing fantasy
Hmm.
wise, and so um, we might see more. And then Rui Hachimura, who's also on this squad, is still hurt. So um, there's room for this team to grow. Hey, don't forget, and we didn't mention him, but Clarkson has been really good fantasy
Clarkson.
wise. He's
I
been on
mean,
fire.
he's been having some games better than Mitchell, right?
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
mean,
he's been obviously a scoring machine, but not only that, he's just the threes and the points, and some games giving you like 6, 7, 8 rebounds. You know, he's been good and really efficient too. He's been shooting. A lot of his games have been. He's been way above 45%. And some even a lot higher. So shout out to Clarkson, one of my former bench guys, who I was waiting for him to be this, but couldn't wait any longer. Um, all right,
your
let's move
option
on.
expired.
Yep. Let's move on to Bimtown. Celtics played NY.
So do
Clinique.
do 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 we want to just skip on to the next matchup, man? Because I feel like we don't want to spend our precious time
Wait, man. I
on
mean,
any match.
but I didn't mention John Morant coming back in our
Uh,
guys that came back last week. He made a surprise comeback, and not that it mattered, but Porzingis was also on this team, um, and I think that deserves a little bit of shine. So now this team going into next week will have a healthy lineup.
a
So
healthy lineup? Nah, no way, no way. This guy's still got Russell Westbrook, right?
yeah,
In
you're
the
right.
lineup.
Yeah, I forgot about
Like,
West. I forgot he still got Westbrook in the lineup. So all right. Well,
man,
how about Zion's performance last week, man? Zion's been really lighting things up. His last 3 out of 4 games. I think there was one game he didn't play at all, but he's been pretty good. What do you think?
I think he's been excellent. He's even hitting free throws at a higher clip. I think he's starting to get his legs underneath him and figure out Stan's new system. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got higher expectations as far as what he's going to be able to do and how he fits within that roster.
Yeah, the one note I'll make about because Luka's also on the Celtics, and we know Luka's been excellent these last we knew Luka was gonna get there and come out of his early slump. Um had the crazy big triple double against Chicago this past week, 36, 16, and 15. I mean, when Luka is doing things like that, it's going to be hard to beat this team. But you still have guys underperforming, guys like Devin Booker, who um, just he's scoring a lot, um, but I think he's still not producing that uh, early round value that people who drafted him early are expecting yet. Um,
Yeah, Booker doesn't look right next to Chris Paul.
mm,
Like the offense doesn't look fluid. Um, and I mean, I know they were winning games initially, but it's just going to take some time for them to figure it out. And I think there's always been that adjustment period anytime, Chris Paul is reintroduced into a situation where there's already a ball dominant person present or someone even emerges. So they're going to have to figure that out because I'm really concerned about how well this team is going to be able to do if those two don't get on the same page um, with the offense.
right. I mean, they're winning some games, obviously, and right now currently sitting at fourth in the West. But only two games over 500. Um, like you said, they probably have some work to do. And we talk about DeAndre Ayton before. He's not been good overall, I think. So they've
He looked
got.
he looked okay today. I will say
No,
that.
I saw the numbers today.
I
I was surprised. I'll say that.
no, I got to see him play, and they were using him much differently. Like
Good.
they were doing things like throwing the ball to the basket. He had a couple post moves, but who was he playing against? The Memphis Grizzlies. And who do the Memphis Grizzlies have right now
Yeah, no big
as
man.
their center and power forward, right? Like, and
Yeah.
so it's just a hot mess with
Yep.
that.
Yeah. We in our injury report we didn't mention Val JV went down as well. Hopefully he gets back pretty soon. And on the flip side, the Celtics also have Cantor, who's been playing pretty good fantasy ball this season. So he's been strong, even blocking shots. Uh, so far. He had a 5 block game against Atlanta, 12, 15, and 5 blocks. Now, should have been probably, we'll talk about our BS of the week, but very intriguing there. It didn't make my list, but very intriguing. Um, let's move on to your team. Phoenix against the Killers of Cranston. Um, you pulled it out, man. I'm super impressed. How you're performing without Cat. What happened in this matchup that from what you saw?
So, initially I had some big doubts, because Cat had the short week. So even though, Cat only played one game this week, I mean, he was only slated to play the two games. However, the one thing that was on my side was the total amount of games. So I was really at an advantage by at least 4 or 5 total games, before all the postponements and cancellations of games, etc.
Hmm.
And so I still was able to maintain that games advantage. I had about 2 games,
Yeah.
over my opponent,
Hmm.
and I knew Cranston was light on the defensive numbers, right? And so I really felt like, that was a category where I could really attack the Cranston Killers was, get real physical, get up in their body, hand checking, picking up those steals, blocking those shots and really sending a message. And we were able to do that, right? We got the blocks, we got the steals, we got the turnovers.
Yeah.
We beat them on the boards too. And right. And what makes this really concerning is one, Cat only played one game. The second, I benched Ben Simmons.
Hmm.
I benched Ben Simmons in this matchup because I was afraid that he would sit out the whole week because, you know, he all of a sudden showed up with like some shoulder or hip injury. And so I was really concerned,
Hmm.
despite the 76ers having 5 games, and a bunch of back
Yeah.
to backs. And then they also had, some contact tracing and COVID things that they were dealing with as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, and the other thing, right, is how my team's been flowing is in Paul George we trust, right? Paul George continues to give us, his best efforts, um, and he had 60% from the field, 95% from the free throws,
Yeah.
and just all across the board types of stats. He actually had a block. They took it away. I don't know why, but he had a block, and I nearly came away with a 7-2. But he's been great.
Hmm.
I mean, I watched the Indiana Pacers play a triangle and two on him and Kawhi Leonard, uh, because they were just trying to keep up with him. So I think across the board, my team is doing enough and playing well, and they're jiving and the momentum is there.
Yeah.
And I think I'm benefiting from the fact that Cranston Killers they've got some locker room issues. I don't know what's going on. Trey Young is all over the place with his stats. Hunter's been amazing. Siakam is starting to pick things up, but he's still kind of a struggle.
Yeah.
Uh,
No Tatum.
Unfortunately, yeah, no Tatum. Tatum didn't play this week. The Allen trade, worked
Yeah.
against them.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, they had Daniel Tice, as well in the lineup.
Right.
Um,
Who
but
who also, missed I think the Celtics only had what, 2 games last week?
yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds
So
about right. Yeah.
so like you mentioned, games played was a little bit of a factor, but um, same thing like you said, underperforming at its best. And what's again concerning me is the 3-point shooting for this team is nowhere near what I was, thinking. Of course, we mentioned all the factors in terms of Tatum being out but and the games played with some of these people, but I mean LeBron being your leading 3-point shooter is not going to cut it. So um, yeah, that's sort of interesting side of things here. But like you said, with Jared Allen, you could have stand the chance to have one rebounding and probably get you a couple of blocks um, to help him in this matchup. And made it a little closer, but probably still not enough to get him to win. So kudos to your team. Let's move over to the Blake Express played the Money Men. Um, um, yeah, what the
Yeah,
Money Men to this.
yeah, Money Man came away with the victory. I thought, this was Blake Express matchup to win. I think this was another matchup in which Blake Express had the advantage as far as games played. It didn't end up that way, and I don't know. Um, yeah, yeah, because a couple of things happened on the Blake Express side as far as games played, but I mean, still, it was still within reason. There were a couple of categories that were close. Um, that Blake Express possibly could have turned over. He lost by 1 point in the points category. Um, Actually, no. It was, oh, and 8 rebounds. 1.8 rebounds. He could possibly get the 8 rebounds if Al Horford's playing those games because Clint Capella was just a complete monster
Yeah.
last week
Yeah.
in the games that they got to play. And then, Dame Lillard, especially with CJ going down at the end of the week,
Hmm.
um, that was pretty big. But I mean, on the other side of the ball, man, you just don't bet against the Joker. The Joker's been the number one fantasy player, and he's just shown why. I mean, he's just basically been a walking triple double on percentages that just don't make sense.
Yeah, man. He's
Um,
he's he's been outrageously good. And like you said, you got when you got Jokic and you had CJ McCollum, who's again, um, these guys, we're talking about the number one and number two overall fantasy players in terms of totals right now. Um, not and then you throw in Grant in the mix, who's been playing great. DeRozan also has been great. Um, you know, there's just not much you could do against that team. And yeah, that's really all I have to say about this matchup. I just looked at the two guys coming into this matchup and just closed my eyes. I just didn't see it. Again, you look at Blake Express. Uh, I see Kelly Oubre and Schroeder in the lineup. Um, and who knows what they're going to give you on any given week. Same thing with Harrison Barnes. Even though he's been actually playing pretty well, fantasy wise. Um, and then you got guys like also like Bagley, who he's starting to pick things up a little bit. 20 plus games his past his last two games, but still he's nowhere near being a positive contributor on a fantasy radar yet. So he's got some work to do there. Um, let's move on to the Flyers against Solid State. We both picked Solid State, and it was an upset. The Flyers walked away with this one. You know, ever so slightly. 5-4 victory. Um, did you see anything here that kind of surprised you?
I mean, it was, we always knew the Harden trade was going to happen, right? And so that kind of happened, the beginning of the week, and so
Yep.
that kind of killed the amount of games that Harden played. I mean, he got to get at least, one game of Harden
Yeah.
towards the end as a Brooklyn net, but I
Hmm.
think if Harden plays one more, I mean, that basically tips this matchup in the direction that we expected. I mean, on the other side of the ball for the Frankfurt Flyers, I mean, Darren Fox finally came and showed up for work, man. So he finally gave the production that Frankfurt Flyers has been expecting this whole season.
Hmm.
Chris Paul, Chris Paul's numbers are a bit worrisome, but I know they were light on games. So maybe actually, no, yeah, Phoenix was actually light on game, so I take that back. But Kawhi Leonard, right? Kawhi Leonard has continued to play really well, and now the Frankfurt Flyers has got marketing back, and he looks great in that Chicago offense. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of promising things. There's a lot to be happy about
Hmm.
um, on the Flyer side of the ball, especially I know they're dealing with the tough injury of Fultz, but I mean I think they've got enough to put some pressure on teams. Um, you know,
Yeah. Should also mention that you know, uh, Colin Sexton didn't play all last week for Solid State, so um, that's usually somebody who they depend on for things like points and um, had been playing pretty well up to the point of getting injured. So it looked like. he was in the lineup. So not sure what happened there. Maybe actually there's I don't, probably was no viable backup. And we'll get to the transactions. Trying to see where he addressed that. So
Yeah,
um,
Cleveland has been funny with like the report because he's been like probable some days or like he's about to play and then all of a sudden he'll just randomly be out. So I don't know
mm,
what's going on in Cleveland
yeah.
with
So
their injury
looks like
report.
a depth issue there. But like you said, if Harden plays all 3 games, I mean, I don't I still go with solid state here. Okay, let's move on to our last matchup, which is the Kings against Syracuse Sparrows. And the Kings, as we expected, came away with that win. But it was close, 5-4. Um, anything interesting in that matchup?
No, I mean it's kind of what we've been saying all along. Like Sparrows is that team that's trying to tank, but they can't really tank because they got just enough, assets, especially in a, pandemic type of season where they're just going to be competitive.
Yeah,
Um, and so, I mean, the Kings were, unfortunately lost some games, to Beal. I know Steph Curry struggled in one game as well. Um, but the Kings will be good. The Kings will be good. They're a team to be messed with. Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. Well, that concludes the matchups.